I'm not making this up. The Rebbe looks at him and says, gives him another $1, and don't be afraid to double your donations. We walk away, he says, Rabbi Gordon, this is a setup, right? I mean, what, you guys do business that way, huh? I said, what are you talking about? This is the Rebbe. Yeah! But, you know, he trusts me. So I convince him that, he said, the Rebbe probably always says that. I said, I never heard it before. It could be. So he says, okay, I'll believe you. Find out how much I gave you this year. I said, it's Sunday. He says, never mind. So I woke up the person who ran my books. We didn't even have a computer. We didn't know what a computer was. And I got the amount. It was a substantial amount, and he wrote me a check right there to fulfill the Rebbe's instruction. Don't be afraid to double your donations. Why do I tell you this story? Because we have to know what a Rebbe is before we talk about connection to the Rebbe. Discussions. What does it mean that we're going to be connected? Connected to who? Connected to what? Now this same gentleman, 20 years ago, he took the whole situation, beginning with 22 years ago, very hard. He was more devastated than many Hasidim I know. He couldn't fathom the loss. And he distanced himself somewhat. And he couldn't get himself to go to the Ohel. It was not the relationship with the Rebbe he wanted. And time went on, and he became more distant and more frustrated. And to move on, obviously I had been pushing him to go to the Ohel and so on. One second, I got a phone call. My wife, should I answer it?
No.
No. You sure? Okay, I'll tell her you said no. So he says, you know, Rabbi, I hear that some people write letters to the Rebbe, and in addition to sending it to the Ohel of the Rebbe, they put it into one of the books of the Rebbe. Is that true? I said, yes, it is. He says, do you believe in it? I said, how could you not believe in it? Of course I believe in it. It's a basic tradition in Jewish life that when we're not sure what to do, we put it in a holy book, and these are the Rebbe's Sforim. There are rules involved, you got to be careful, but of course. He says, I want to do one of those. I said, okay. He says, because I miss the Rebbe. I said, me too. So he writes a letter and he lays it all out. We send it to the Ohel, and we place it, I have him place it in the Igros Kodesh. And I open it up, and there's a whole letter from the Rebbe saying, my dear friend, the answer to your question is, you need to study Igeres HaKodesh Simin Chav Zayin. You need to study the section of Tanya, chapter 27 of the letters. For those who may not be that familiar, this was mentioned earlier tonight. The Rebbe mentioned it in the video. This is the Perek Tanya, which the Alter Rebbe wrote to the disciples of Reb Mendel Haradoker. He passed away, and he left them bereft. And there's a whole theme, and then there's a biur, an explanation. By the way, if you study with me, this is on the internet, because I have the whole Tanya on the internet, Baruch Hashem. And it basically says that when a tzaddik passes away, you know, we read a lot of Zohar, Aramaic, and a lot of Hebrew. We got to speak English. That when a tzaddik passes away, he is present more than before. Not only in the higher worlds, but also in this world. Not only in matters of the spirit, but also in matters of material issues. So what this gentleman learns from his putting his letter into the Igros Kodesh is that he has no idea of the whole idea of the eternity of the life of a tzaddik. And that for Chassidim today, Igeres HaKodesh Siman Chav Zayin, that's like only a beginning. To us, we're much more connected to the Rebbe than Siman Chav Zayin. That's like elementary. But at the very least, we need to recognize that the Rebbe is, forgive me, alive and well. I don't mean physically, because we're about to commemorate the 20th Yortzeit Hilula, but I mean in reality. Because the real life of a Rebbe is Emunah, Ahava, and Yira. Faith in Hashem, fear of Hashem, love of Hashem. And that doesn't die. And that doesn't pass away. In fact, that becomes even more revealed, even more dynamic, even more powerful than before. And the Alter Rebbe writes to the bereft disciples of Reb Mendel Haradoker, your Rebbe is alive. He's here. Communicate with him. Connect to him. And I'm sitting and learning this with him, and he's like, I'll use a California word, freaking out. Wow. So chas v'sholom, we should speak about perpetuating the memory and the legacy of the Rebbe, that too. But the Rebbe has to be in our lives in reality, morning, afternoon, and evening. And our spouses need to know this, and our children need to know this, and our grandchildren need to know this, and our mushpoyim, those who learn from us, need to know this. It's not an option. Because unless we have a living Rebbe, Yatir mi b'chayai, more than he was during his lifetime, not less, not second best, not memories. Obviously, we all want the Rebbe back, the Shoma Begul. Obviously, believe that's going to happen any second with the coming of Mashiach. That's not even a question. But until then, we need to also connect to the Rebbe as a reality, as a living reality, not as a memory to perpetuate. And this is critically important if we speak about hiskashrus. What does hiskashrus mean? It means to be connected. A chassid is connected to his Rebbe. How could you be connected to a Rebbe whose 20th Yortzeit Hilula we're about to commemorate? The answer is, you haven't been listening. This is what hiskashrus means. So if we talk about a hachona, a preparation for Gimel Tammuz, there's no greater preparation than drilling into our heads David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. And I'm not talking about groups and movements and flags and all that stuff. I'm not addressing that. I'm addressing the connection of a chassid to a rebbe in any way you know how to. In the best way you know how to. But certainly you have to live with it. Because if you don't live with it, your disciples are certainly not going to live with it. And their disciples are certainly not going to live with it. So when we talk about a hachana for Gimel Tammuz, this is the hachana for Gimel Tammuz. I want to share a few stories with you. Because as someone who has spent, Baruch Hashem, many, many years on shlichus, I spend a lot of time thinking about the Rebbe's wonderful vision of shlichus. And I must remind you, or you may not know, that when I was a little child, my father, of blessed memory, would take me to every fabrengen. We lived in Newark, New Jersey, and Crown Heights was a car ride away. Is it vodka? It's water? You're not allowed to drink water at a fabrengen. Hi. So, again, you may or may not be familiar, but in the early years, in the 1950s, the fabrengens, often the large ones, took place in rented halls around Crown Heights. Because 770 was tiny, they used to use the outside area for a while, and the 770 that we know today was nowhere around. So I remember going with my father, of blessed memory, to the fabrengen as a little kid. We were on shlichus in Newark, New Jersey. What would I do? I was 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. Usually the fabrengens were Yutas Kislev, Yud Shvat, Purim, cold winter, not the warm winters like you have in Montreal. The cold New York winters. I used to find a pile of coats, climb up on the pile of coats and fall asleep. And then my father had to find me and take me home, and that was my experience. But sometimes I even listened, and sometimes I took it in. But it made a very powerful impression upon my psyche. And then on the way home, it was my job, given to me by my mother of blessed memory. I had to keep my father awake. He shouldn't fall asleep, chas v'sholom, driving. So we used to discuss what happened at the fabrengen. There was one particular discussion we had where my father shared with me that the Rebbe really began to articulate his dream and vision of sending shluchim all over the world. Now, all over the world didn't mean very much. It's not like Moshe Kotlarski's roll call. I'm talking about countries he can't pronounce. Sorry, no entertainment. My father explained to me that the Rebbe has a vision. Just like we're in Newark, the Rebbe wants to send shluchim, Yomov, or Kedmov, it's Avainav, or Negba. And my father says, did you hear the song they sang? They sang Uparatzta, except that this was before there was the Uparatzta song. So they sang Uparatzta to the tune of Dayenu. Uparatzta, Uparatzta, Yom of a Kedma, Tzafeina, Vanegma. And I was intrigued by this vision of shlichus. In 1961, I was 12 years old. The Rebbe spoke about JFK again, not the airport. About his vision of Peace Corps. The beautiful sikha. If you're not familiar with it, you should see it, hear it, learn it. And the Rebbe says that we have to learn from everything that we see or hear. The President of the United States announced a Peace Corps. He's going to send people to third world countries to reach out and help the poor people, and they're not going to get high salaries, and they're not going to live in comfortable villas. They're going to struggle and live like the regular people. The Rebbe said, this is my vision of shlichus. And then, at 14 years old, I came to Montreal. And my chaverim and I, we were talking about shlichus. My wife and I got married the first night of Hanukkah, Tavshin Lamed Beis, December 71. I'm from the olden days. We went into Yechidus before the Chasana, because that's what people did. It was like, of course we're going to go into Yechidus before the Chasana. Am I going too long? Where's Rabbi Kramer? Fell asleep. Am I okay? You know, I have doctors who prescribe my speeches for insomnia. You know, there was a man called me up and he said, Rabbi, it was Sunday morning. He says, because of your speech yesterday, I couldn't sleep all night. I said, wow. I'm so impressed. He says, not exactly. He says, I had a good nap during your speech. When I sleep in the day, I have trouble sleeping at night. So anyway, we went into Yechidus. And we asked for brachas, and we received brachas, and it was a wonderful Yechidus. A lot of interesting things happened. Now we're getting married, if you remember, because you're going to be tested, on the first night of Hanukkah. Very good. Everybody gets an extra dessert. And the Rebbe said, I don't remember the exact lashon, but more or less, the Rebbe said, "Mizol bevar zayin ba'arov, os mazoton b'kesher zu neiros Hanukkah." You should find out and ask a Rav what to do about lighting Hanukkah candles. Okay? I'm just a simple guy from New Jersey. So we finish the Yechidus. I go to a Rav, Reb Zalman Shimon Dworkin, Zechreinu Livrocha, Rabbi Zalman Shimon Dworkin, who was the Rav in Crown Heights, and I told him the story. I said, I'm coming to you. The Rebbe sent us to go to a Rav. What to do about lighting Hanukkah candles. So he says, I don't understand. He says, you should light at home where you are before the Chasana. And the Kala should light at home where she is with her parents. Her parents should light for her, whatever it is. And I don't understand. I said, you don't understand, you're the rabbi. He says, "Efshe will der Rebbe am soll zinden beim Chasana mishum pirsumen nisa." Maybe the Rebbe wants that we should light Hanukkah candles. There are a lot of people from my father's community, my parents' community, who were, as my father of blessed memory used to say, nicht fanatisch. Some of them were secular and so on. Imagine. In our Chasana Yechidus, what is the Rebbe telling us? Light Hanukkah candles at your wedding. The Rav was trying to figure it out. Mishum Pirsum Nisa. Because at your wedding you you also have to be concerned to bring the message of light to the world. Hey, it's my wedding. Let me enjoy my wedding. No. There is no enjoy anything. Now you've heard of Shnas HaShiva. That's when the Rebbe turned 70 years old. It was the massive Farbrengen. And you all know that the Rebbe asked for a birthday present, that he wants 71 new institutions. This was Yud Aleph Nisan, Topshin, Lamed Beis, 1972. I don't want to get into details, but it was not until Nisan, Adar, Nisan, Lamed Gimel, that the opportunity arose for us to become the Rebbe Shluchim in the Valley, California. We were of the last of the Ayin Aleph Leisdes. Yud Nisan, a day before the cutoff, we received our answer from the Rebbe. It also happens to be the day our oldest son was born. It's a very exciting day for us. And I'll never forget what the Rebbe said. I wrote, in the name of my wife as well, a very exciting letter asking for the Rebbe's Haskam Bracha and whatever else, that he should make us his shluchim. I don't remember the lashon. But the Rebbe responded in writing. I received this Yud Nisan in the morning. And the first thing the Rebbe said to me is, Be'im Mishayer Shemesugol Lozeh. If he, meaning me, if I think that I'm cut out for this. And then the Rebbe added, I have this answer on my desk, V'ha'ikir sheyachlit laved b'meretz u'b'bitochen chazak ashker al atziyah. The main thing is that I should decide firmly to work with meretz, alacrity, and with tremendous trust in Hashem. But the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out if I'm cut out for this. And this was an answer that a person can live an entire lifetime with these few words. First of all, you need to believe that you can do what you're doing. Because if you don't believe you can do what you're doing, you're not going to succeed. Second of all, you need to work very hard, with alacrity. And third of all, you need to have tremendous trust in the Eibusher. There's a wonderful story that I like to tell of a man who came to see his rabbi. And he said, Rabbi, my dad passed away. He was making a wonderful living in the store, but since he died, the store is going to pot. It's not happening. Rabbi, give us guidance, blessing, inspiration. So the rabbi opened up his drawer. He opened up his top drawer, and he took out a mezuzah. And he says, this is a very special mezuzah. I want you to put it on the front door of your store. And every hour on the hour, I want you to kiss the mezuzah. The man says, you're serious, right? Put this mezuzah very special mezuzah on the front door of my store, and every hour on the hour I should kiss the mezuzah? He says, yep. And come back in 3 months and let me know how it's going. Man comes back 3 months later. He says, Rabbi, it's a miracle. What a mezuzah. Wow. I put the mezuzah up, and every hour on the hour I kiss the mezuzah, and business is booming. I can't explain it. And the rabbi says, do it for another 3 months and come see me in 3 months. The guy walks out, so the Rebbitzin says to the rabbi, my dear husband, you know, my father was a rabbi. You, my husband, are a rabbi. We've been together for many years. I never heard anything so crazy. What kind of mishigas is this special mezuzahs? You put it on the door and you kiss. What is this craziness? You can't fool me, I'm the Rebbitzin. He says, you don't get it. This guy's father, let me just see if it's Obama. Somebody's texting me from here, giving me messages. I'm fired. Why don't you give the speech? Okay, someone is writing my speech here. Let's just say Omen. He was working very hard, and he was in the store, and he made a good living. He died, and the son was at the beach surfing all day. So the store started going down in business. That's why I gave him the mezuzah. Because if you kiss the mezuzah every hour, at least you're in the store. I'm getting more messages here. Somebody want to tell me something? Because this is a lot of very complicated stuff. Want me to go home? So, when the Rebbe says, the merits, in our lives we need to work with merits. But merits is not enough because we have to have tremendous bitochen. And if we have tremendous bitochen, then as Chassidim and as Shluchim and every Jew, as mentioned earlier, is a shliach. Every Chassid is a shliach and every Jew is a shliach. We will succeed. And if there's one message that the Rebbe shared with us for many, many, many years and continues to share with us now, it is that whatever we do, we will succeed at. If we believe that we can do it. As Kolev said. When all the naysayers say you can't do it, the Rebbe says you can do it. Because if you believe in yourself, the Eibishter certainly believes in you. And that applies to anything you're doing. As long as it's appropriate. Certainly if it's mitzvah and Torah and mitzvahs and outreach and emunah and ava and yira and everything else that comes with Chassidus, especially in our time, which includes not only the 10 mitzvahs, but Mivtza Avos Yisrael and Mivtza Mashiach. My father, Zechrenu Livrocha, when he was asked why he speaks to so many people about tefillin, he says, I can't help it. I'm a tefillin addict. Why do you keep speaking about Mashiach? I can't help it. I'm a Mashiach addict. The Rebbe wants Chassidim to be tefillin addicts and Mashiach addicts and all the mevzoyim in between. But I said earlier that I wanted to share a few stories. And after I share these stories, we'll pause and we'll sing some nigunim, and we'll see where we go from there. So I believe that one of the visions of the Rebbe in establishing his concept, his vision of shlichus, and there are many, and we can speak all night about what the Rebbe intended with shlichus, and there's 100 reasons, and that's not enough, that's a beginning. But one of the reasons we see clearly is the Rebbe wanted there to be a representation of Chabad everywhere and anywhere in the world. He wanted to make the world a very small place. That's clearly a hachana to Mashiach, which is the idea of one. So I want to tell you 3 stories that I experienced personally. Story number 1. Every Yom Kippur at Nila, for many, many, many years, and you have to understand that a lot of people come to Shul Nila that don't walk into a shul all year round. More than Kol Nidre. I speak about Mivtzoyim. I speak about the idea that the Rebbe created a starter kit for Yiddishkeit. And I go through the 10 Mivtzoyim. And I've had, over the years, amazing, tremendous payers from this. One year, I'm speaking about the Mivtzoyim, and I go through, amongst other Mivtzoyim, because I go through all of them, the idea of Mivtza Kashrus, to keep kosher not only at home, but also outside the home. A few months later, one of the Mispalalim in our shul, who happens to be a makeup artist in the movie industry. He and his wife do makeup. He says to me, Rabbi Gordon, I must tell you a story. He says, you spoke on Yom Kippur about the idea of kashrut. We basically keep kashrut at home. But when it comes to on the road, it's not easy because of what we do. We travel to all kinds of strange places. We try, but not always is it possible. We went to a makeup conference, one of the biggest. This was in Italy, around Bologna, Italy. We're staying in this bed and breakfast, and in the morning, my wife and I, who are both involved in the convention and the conference, we have some bread. How non-kosher could bread be? We have some margarine, we have some coffee, and then we figured we'll wing it for the rest of the day with Diet Cokes. I'm not sure if you know, but Diet Coke has all kinds of chemicals in it that can really keep you going. That was a joke. So, we're going through the day, and we're sipping Diet Cokes, and all of a sudden, I get so hungry. And I pass by a hot dog stand. I love hot dogs. There's only one thing I love more than hot dogs, and that's hamburgers. And I say to my wife, what's going to be already? We can't make it through the day with Diet Coke alone. She says, well, we promised. The rabbi said we have to keep kashrut even on the road. Yeah, but one hamburger. God won't mind. And that was the conversation. Now this fellow speaks a perfect Hebrew. He speaks a broken English. He also speaks Italian, French. He's a linguist. Like the fellow said, I speak 14 languages, English the best. Suddenly he says, I see this rabbi. Now I figured the rabbi needs my help because I saw a rabbi a few days earlier and the Italians were picking on him, anti-Semitism. So I walk over and I say to this rabbi, Ani yachol lazor lecha? Can I help you? So the rabbi says, Ani bati lazor lecha. He says, Ech ata yachol lazor li? For those of you who don't speak Mamelushan, can I help you? I came to help you. How can you help me? He says to the rabbi. He says, Me'epata? He says, I'm from Encino, California. He says, Encino, California? The rabbi says to me, do you know my friend, Josh Gordon? He says, who are you? He says, never mind who I am. I'm sure you're hungry. He says, let's go to the side. I have a suitcase full of sandwiches. I come here to the convention to bring sandwiches to hungry Jewish businessmen. This is Eli David Bornstein, my colleague and classmate from 50 years ago. So they go off to the side and he says, I have hot dogs, I have hamburgers. You have hamburgers! It's a miracle! He comes back and he tells me, he says, now I know the Rebbe is alive. He sent me a hamburger to Bologna, Italy. That's one story. Now I'll tell you a second story. I get a call from a woman in the community. She's distraught. Can I come see you? I said, sure. So she comes with a few daughters of hers, and she says, I understand you know how to get bracha from the Rebbe. She is obviously a foreigner. We have a lot of foreigners in our community. In fact, I'm the only real Californian. I'm just kidding, I'm from Dobshitz. So I said, what's the story? She said, Rabbi, I need a bracha from the Rebbe. We are originally French, and my daughter went to Lyon, France, and we lost touch with her. She disappeared. And I called the State Department, and I reached out, and I called here, and I called there, and I filled out reports, and they're looking, but nothing is happening. I need a bracha from the Rebbe. I said, no problem, we'll write it down. I wrote it down, I think I faxed it in, gave me all the names and everything. I said, by the way, while we're talking, tell me a little bit about your daughter. What is her name? What does she look like? How old is she? Why do you need to know? Well, I have a friend in Lyon. Because one of the years I did not learn in Mונטריאול, I learned in Brunois. And I made a lot of friends in Brunois. It was 1967. And one of the friends that I acquired was my friend Mule Gurevich. Rabbi Shmuel Gurewitz, who is the head of Chabad in Lyon. I said, let me call my friend, let me see if he knows something. She says, I called the State Department. I said, it's okay, we have our own State Department. Anyway, she went home, I got on the phone, I said, Mule, how you doing? Hey! And we talked about how Rav Nissen caught me drinking Coke, and he thought it was Goyish Shavine, and we reminisced about the old times. And I said, listen, this girl, ask around, can you find her for me? An hour later, he calls me back, we found her. She's alive and well. I called her mother, I said, your daughter is alive and well, this is where she is. She said, the State Department couldn't do it. I said, but Chabad could do it. That's story number 2. Story number 3. There's a gentleman in my community. One of his sons was what he thought was a rock star. So got up it. You look at this guy, he looks like a rock star. And this rock star had a band. And he and his band were in Brussels, Belgium. One day this guy, my mispalo, calls me. He says, I have an emergency. My son was in Brussels. He was staying in the Holiday Inn on the way to the airport. He had all of his luggage. He put down his fanny pack, his purse. It had money, passports, tickets, everything. And he was dealing with the desk at the Holiday Inn. He turns around, it's all gone. The luggage, the passports, everything. And he's left without anything. Can you help? I said, give me the information. Where's the Holiday Inn? I said, tell him to stay there. Does he have a cell phone? Yes. I got on the phone. I talked to him. I said, where are you? He says, you want to hear something? I actually met a religious Jew. And he looked at me and he says, are you a star? I said, well, you know, I do rock and roll. He says, are you famous? He says, not yet. The guy walked away from me. So I said, listen, I have a friend of mine. He's going to be at your hotel in 45 minutes. He's going to bring you money. He's going to help you get a passport. He's going to help you get a ticket. But there's a fee. What's the fee? I said, you need to put on film with him. He says, I'll put on film. And to cut to the chase, a very dear friend of mine who was on Shlichus at that time in Brussels, went there, took care of things, laid out a bunch of money, came back, he repaid the money. So I'm telling you stories. Bologna, Italy, Lyon, France, Brussels, Belgium. Wherever you go, Yom Tov, Aked Tov, it's a Vain of an Egba. The Rebbe is there. So the Eibishter helping that we should take merit Ad Mosai enough, and we should see, before Gimel Tamuz, the Giyula, Amitas, Vashlema, Zenzer mit der Rebbe, jetzt, Begrub Gashmi, Omen.